Hey, you. Yeah, you.
I opened a SoFi money account, and it was the first time that I realized I can be earning interest back on my money.
I just discovered SoFi, and I'm an investor with a diversified portfolio. Who am I?
I refinanced my student loan with SoFi because of their low interest rates.
Hey, you. Yeah, you.
I opened a SoFi money account, and it was the first time that I realized I can be earning interest back on my money.
I just discovered SoFi, and I'm an investor with a diversified portfolio. Who am I?
I refinanced my student loan with SoFi because of their low interest rates.
Thanks, SoFi, for helping us get our money right. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and very warm welcome to today's panel about careers in gaming and esports for college students. We are super excited to have you here, and we have a great lineup ahead. This panel is hosted very kindly by the Intercollegiate Game Network, a student-led organization that provides programming for collegiate gamers, and SoFi, an all-in-one personal finance app that helps you save, spend, earn, borrow, and invest. SoFi is invested in college students and in their careers, hence this panel. And we are running this panel in partnership with the SoFi Meta Melee, a tournament series and competition just for college students. So if you would like to learn more and enter the tournament or the raffles, please head to nerdstreetgamers.com/SoFi. When you become a SoFi member, you have access to complimentary career coaching because SoFi wants to help you maximize the investment that they know you've made in your career. So on that note, let's dive into it. And I'm going to start with briefly introducing everybody we've got with us. First up, we've got Bryce Blum, my partner in founding Theorycraft and the founding partner of ESG Law, the world's first dedicated esports law firm that represents the majority of Western teams competing today. Also here with us is Sebastian Park. Sebastian is the creator of Clutch Gaming, an esports organization created within the Houston Rockets, then sold to Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. In 2016, Sebastian became the first dedicated front office esports executive in the NBA. Next up is Matt Morello, aka Mr. X. You may recognize him as one half of a casting duo on the Overwatch League or on his show on Venn, but Matt also has a storied past in Call of Duty as a professional player and coach. And lastly, we have Andrea and Alexandra Botez. They are renowned chess champions, they are sisters, and they are two of the best known chess streamers. Their Twitch channel, Botez Live, has 500,000 followers, and their show has played a huge part in bringing attention to the game within the streaming community. So I want to start with a question that's relevant to the audience of college students that we're speaking to tonight. Did you know gaming, esports, or streaming would be part of your career at that time in your life? And Bryce, we will start with you.
I had no idea, but I'm also pretty old, so the path really didn't exist when I was in college, right? Like when I was in college, it was a straight hobby. Even when I was in law school, it was like barely becoming a thing. And so I often joke that I kind of fell into and then ran with my career. It definitely wasn't an intentional thing, but just goes to show you, you know, stay open and you never know what the world's going to throw at you.
How about you, Matt?
I had an idea. Because I played professionally like way back, like 2006, 2007. And I won a bunch of national tournaments then. And I kind of figured like, well, I'm pretty good at this. I may as well try and figure something out. I just didn't know where I would end up in esports and gaming because there's so many different avenues to go. I would say I knew I wanted to be involved. I think broadcasting, I just kind of stumbled on into a lot like Bryce.
Seb, how about you?
I mean, if Bryce is old, I guess I'm old too now. So, but hell no, there's no way. I mean, when I was in school, Twitch TV was barely a thing. I'd watch some esports streams and some things on Justin TV. I followed Day9. There were some other content creators back then. But shoot, like it just wasn't a career. I had a couple of friends who told me, like one of my best friends, I remember talking to her about, hey, like, do you think gaming or any of this stuff's a thing? And she's like, what are you doing with your life? Don't do that. So that was sort of what it was like back then, for sure.
Yeah, great advice, Seb.
Great advice, yeah.
And I guess that leaves us. So I had no idea. I was doing chess on Twitch and with chess.com just as a hobby. At the time, I was actually working on a startup that ultimately failed. So I thought that's what I was going to do. But Andrea might have a more interesting answer because she's taking a gap year right now. I'll let her take it away.
Yeah, speaking of college career, I actually chose to take a gap year and delay going to college for a year to live with my sister and learn to manage this channel. But I think that I probably learned more this year than I would have in my first year at college. So
super interesting. Bryce, you specifically of this group are the one that chose to pursue higher education, and you went to grad school, you went to law school. How did you come to make that decision?
So I wanted to go to law school since I was like 3 or something. It was just, it was like a party trick. Like my mom would like call over like little Bryce and be like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a lawyer." And all my parents' friends thought it was the cutest thing ever. And then I think I thought the law was interesting. I liked to argue. It kind of made sense as a career path. And then as time went on, I just would routinely check back in with myself and be like, is this still what you want to do? And the answer was just yes, yes, yes. And then what I wanted to do with that degree evolved. Right. At first, I wanted to go into politics, and then I wanted to go into nonprofit work, and then I went into the private sector. And here I am owning the world's only esports law firm, which was, definitely not part of the plan. So I don't know. I guess it was like a natural affinity for my personality, and just by the time I graduated from college and was figuring out what to do next, it was the thing I wanted to do.
Cool. This is another question for everyone. And was there anything specific that you did either in high school or in college, i.e. a class, an internship, a club, that you feel like really set you up for success in what you've chosen to do professionally? Bryce, we'll start with you and go for
Sure.
everything that's directed at everyone. We can go
in circle. That means I always go first, Lauren. You're killing me. Okay. Yeah, actually, I was on the debate team, and it's like the most nerdy activity one can engage in, but it was so valuable in terms of life skills. It teaches you like critical thinking, operating under pressure, speaking, writing, researching. It was just so valuable. It made me talk a lot faster, so I guess it came with a downside. But if you have an affinity for it or want to give it a shot, highly recommend.
Yeah, for me, there wasn't like necessarily like a club or internship. I did a little bit of time at like the MLG offices in New York, which I think definitely kind of gave me a great insight into multiple things within esports. But throughout school, I always participated in sports leagues, like on the outside. And I think sports just gives you a great foundation of just working with others in like high pressure situations and working things out. So I think sports definitely played a big part in what I've done.
Wait, which way does the circle go? Am I next?
You're next.
I'm next? All right.
Yep.
I'd say for me, it's poker. Really gave me a strong grounding in losing a lot. Frankly, it's you make the right decisions, you lose. It's sort of apropos to life. It's a lot of what happens is you do a lot of prep, you do a lot of work, and it won't go your way all the time. And so that was really helpful, especially as you have less and less control the older you get, I think. And even if you think you have more control and you have more decision-making power, realistically, you just do the best you can and hope for the best. And so that was really helpful, especially going from high school and college, where frankly I was far more used to being on top of my stuff, to realizing you don't control anything. So highly recommended poker.
Andrea and I both played chess from a very young age, and obviously now we're creating content mostly for chess. And if we wouldn't have been good at it, then our content wouldn't be very good as well. But I think more generally, for anybody who's interested in potentially being a content creator or starting business of any kind, it's really important to do it in a space that you're passionate about and have spent a lot of time in, because that's when you're actually going to become one of the people who are the most knowledgeable in the space. So you never know what passions are going to turn into something more.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly true, just in terms of when you're establishing an identity on Twitch, finding a niche and really leaning into it and exploring what makes you distinctive. This is for all of you. What is your advice on how to set career goals if you do set career goals? And do you revisit them? Do you refresh them? Would love to get a sense of your process.
Yeah, so I'll try to not answer this with like a novel. I've had a lot of thoughts of this as I've mentored people, have employees who work for me, and I figure out how different personalities figure out their career trajectory. I think it's important to have a plan, and that plan should be short, medium, and long term, right? Like you should have a plan of how you want to grow personally and professionally within your current role. You should have what you want your role to become, right? What do you aspire to be, either internally at the company you're at or externally, right? Where do you want this whole thing to go? And then it's important to check in on that regularly, right? Like I mean, the first question asked about, did I think this is going to be where I wound up? And the answer is no, it wasn't even remotely on my radar, right? And it wasn't until I did something that kind of put it on the table, and then I enjoyed that, and I had the presence of mind to check in and say like, oh, this is interesting. Like, do you want to pivot to a career in the esports and gaming industry? And I was open enough to say yes. If I had I'm practicing this law firm, I'm gonna be a partner of this law firm, that's what I'm gonna do, and I wasn't open-minded about it, then I probably would have stayed on that path, right? And so you never know what the world is gonna throw at you. So I guess my kind of short version of the advice is have a plan, but also be flexible.
Yeah, I've always had like a plan of what I wanted to do and like where I wanted to go within the space, like at the certain times when I'm working on stuff, whether I was as a player, as a coach, and then like a broadcaster. I've always set my goals really high and always kind of check in and work towards those, and always kind of build towards something. You're always kind of, you have this grand vision and you do everything in the plan to get there. And I've always felt that that's helped me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to pile on to stuff that Bryce and Matt have already said, but I think the two big things I would take away from it were, one, this professor named Philip Tetlock, who does a lot of work in decision making, and what he says, and it's pretty provably true on forecasting, is it's really hard to predict beyond 2 years. So I don't do as much work on my 5-year plan or 10-year plan or even 3-year plan as much as I think about what's the next 12 months look like, what's the next 24 months look like. Because frankly, you just don't know. The space changes really quickly. The world changes really quickly. A year ago, I was planning on doing something else, then COVID happened, and that completely changed a lot of stuff I was working on. And then two, I like to think about my mental model a lot, and I think about tilt, think about like what I'm thinking about, and how I'm thinking about things change over time. So I make sure I write it down. I make sure what I think in the moment, when I feel calm and put together, I write down what I think. And so I can reflect back on it when I'm not calm and not put together and, a wreck, and to be like, oh, okay, so this is what I believe when I was on top of my stuff, to make sure that I keep that guidance while I update consistently.
I echo a lot of what has been said here, and I'm also going last, so I'll just try to add some new piece of content here. I've had a few career changes. At first, at Stanford, I wanted to go to law school, and then I ended up taking some time off working in venture capital and at tech companies, and I realized that would be something I'm more interested in. So I then had to make a difficult transition to try to co-found a company, which I worked on for 3 years. Then it failed, and then it was another decision. So my advice is more, you're going to have a lot of turning points in your career, and those are situations where you usually have kind of a gut feeling whether it's worth doing something or not, and you definitely want to de-risk it as much as possible. And the way I like doing that is trying to think about what the worst case scenario would be in those different situations, because usually you're really afraid to take something that is going to be a big change in your life. But when you think through it logically, the worst case situation isn't actually that bad, and then it often gives you the strength to do that. And Andrea, if you want to add anything, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have the least amount of experience here. It's been about a year.
You decided to take a gap year, which is
I was definitely going to say, build on, what he said about COVID and everything being unexpected. I like to set short-term goals. And what Alex was just speaking about realizing what has the least risk. When I started to take my gap year, I said, well, I mean, this is such a rare opportunity to grow a business. It's 1 year of my life. And after this 1 year, I can return to college. And what I wanted to add about goal setting was, so far, I've just been learning to set goals for growing the channel and the business. And it's nice that we have a team of 2 and we hold each other accountable and say, this month we want to grow on a different platform on the YouTube. We check in each other week by week and just been, setting goals as a team.
I think for what it's worth, the example of a gap year is a really good one of what we're talking about here, because there are so few people who do, right? It's a path that everyone is just told from if you come from a certain background, you are very likely from basically birth to be told by your parents that you're going to college and that you will do that the moment you graduate from high school, right? So I think it's really cool you take a gap year and we have that perspective represented, because it's kind of like your sister was saying, right? Like Alex is saying, we're talking about de-risking life and thinking about what is the worst case scenarios. People are so afraid to do something that's different. They just follow whatever the path is, right? And it's why a ton of people just like go to law firms and then never go elsewhere. They just keep practicing law because they went to law school, so they have a law degree, so you might as well become a partner at a law firm. And then you blink and 40 years later, it's like, I'm doing this. And I never stopped and critically evaluate whether I wanted to go. So maybe you do decide at the end of this year to go to college, or maybe you don't, but I think it's a really valuable perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of sunk costs, right? People think too much in terms of what they've already done, and life is super long. As surprising, everyone says life is short, but like life is really long. We're still living, and we keep going. And so, I love the downside argument, right? It's like there's not that much downside in a lot of things. You can take as much time as you want in doing things, and if you start something at 28 versus 38, it doesn't really matter. As long as you find the thing you want to do.
Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, when I decided to take the gap year, all my life I had my plan on what college and what I want to study. And then in just 1 month, everything changed. I had to decide. And yeah, it was pretty much just a big opportunity that no one else had. And what's 1 year of my life to try something new. And there's always, I can return to the normal route if I want.
Yeah, college is going to be there. Or whatever job you think that you're thinking about founding a startup, and and it's like, what am I going to do? Do I want to found the startup, or I want to go into whatever career path? It's like the standard career path is always available. If you have something that you're passionate about, you want to pursue, take the shot, see what happens.
Yeah, and I think that ties really, really nicely back to Bryce's point just about having some things a little bit scripted, but keeping it loose and having the ability to surprise yourself and allow yourself to choose something different when the opportunity arises. So this question is for Seb, Bryce, and Matt. As we all know, esports and gaming are industries in which networking and making connections are very important, but sometimes traditional networking just doesn't come that naturally to people. What's your best advice on how to build meaningful relationships in this industry?
I'll take this first. I think a couple of things jump to mind. One is that we as an industry need to do a better job, right? I think certainly I come from, I had the ability to go to college. I had the ability to, do a major and pursue jobs and careers that, paid me enough money to go pursue other things. And so it's a lot easier for me to network, and we need to do a better job as an industry to help reach out to people who aren't as comfortable in our different spaces. I've talked a bunch about this with Bryce before, where it's like, hey, like we're lucky because we went to your standard college experience and we partied, and like we understand how to navigate those environments better. And so that's definitely something that we need to do better about. But if you're just getting in, I would push people to push yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone. Reach out to people. Everyone in the space is generally responsive. I've been really lucky in that I've sent a lot of cold emails in my life, and 99% of them don't have any response. But the ones that do, like those people have been really awesome and great for me and my career and my personal life as well. So that's the one thing. But I certainly think we on our side as an industry need to do a better job in gaming and esports to make places more inclusive and for people who don't see as much inside the sausage making.
Yeah, I've been pretty fortunate, I think, in this regard, is that I started back in 2006. So as esports has grown, I've kind of grown with everybody else. So a lot of the people that I even teamed with went on to be like developers over at Epic for Fortnite and other different types of games. So I kind of have a list of people I know that I've known for 10 plus years that I could like go back to. But I think for starting out as well and meeting new people, I've always found it pretty easy to play games with people from other different companies and people within esports. Like, it seems such like a low fruit, but like everybody plays games in the industry. So to be able to kind of coordinate with other people and, you know, bring people into your group of friends, they play games with each other, you move on. I think it's a really easy way to connect.
Yeah, I totally would echo that. And just to build on that, in addition to playing games, I think there's a lot of digital-based networking that's available in this space that's a little bit harder in other industries, right? So much of our industry exists online. I mean, when I started in esports, I knew literally no one, right? I had no contacts, no foot in the door, no nothing. I built a profile on Reddit as Esports Law, and I started posting and responding to people. And I built out a profile. I turned that into a white paper series. The white paper series was shared, turned that into a Twitter account. I started posting a lot on Twitter, and I met people through that. You know, networking opportunities today are so much broader than they used to be. And that doesn't mean live networking doesn't matter. It does. If you have a personality that can go and be in a social environment, introduce yourself and build connections live, you know, in a non-COVID world, you're going to get plenty of those opportunities in esports and gaming as well. But there's a lot more available. I think the best advice I can give you is if you're on the outside trying to figure out how to break in, you need to figure out a way to stand out from the pack, right? There's a supply demand issue when it comes to any gaming job, right? It's an industry built on passion. There are always going to be way more people who want to get in than there are jobs. It's like sports or music or the movie business or whatever, right? And for all that, you just have to find a way to show the value you can bring to the table before you get in. And thankfully, there are a lot of opportunities to do that as well. You just have to put in the extra time, energy, and effort to get there.
Yeah. So this question is for Alexandra, Andrea, and Matt. The three of you are what we would call front-facing on-camera talent. And as such, you're all in the process of building and maintaining a personal brand. And I'm wondering, was your approach to your sort of personal brand something you concretely planned? Was it born from your personality and your hobbies organically, or did you lay the groundwork? Would love to hear more about that process for each of you.
Yeah, I would say for me, it kind of grew over time. Because I started as a player and then kind of went into a coaching role and then just kind of stumbled into broadcast. And I think all three of those were like really different phases of one, my life, but also kind of career, and also the people who like follow me in terms of like my fan base. So for me, it's always been like a ever evolving thing, especially changing games and whatnot. But I've always kind of had a plan. And I think you listen to the fans who have been with you for a very long time. You kind of survey like everything else going on in the industry and within your game, within your scene, and you kind of craft your niche and your narrative that way. That's kind of always how I've looked at it.
I think right now, to be a successful content creator, it really matters that you're authentic. And this is even stronger on Twitch, because Twitch isn't pre-recorded content. I mean, maybe you can fake authenticity for a 10-minute video, but you're not going to do it if you're streaming, 5-6 hours every single day. So my brand was basically just based off my personality, but we did have one branding change, and that was when my sister started streaming, and we decided that we wanted to combine the two channels. So it switched from being a personal channel to having both of our personalities as well as the two of us. And I think it was totally normal to go through that kind of branding change, because it was still authentic to us, but in a different way. It was evolving. And Andrea, feel free to add on this.
And yeah, I was going to add to it is what I think one big reason for why the channel is successful is it all started, with my sister, it started with her hobby. So she did it just for fun. She enjoyed playing chess. It was a way that she could continue. And then same with me. So it just started with our passion, and we branched out from that. And we're never content creators that want to just chase a trending game or something. We always
unless it's Among Us, but you should see the followers.
Yeah, I guess unless it's a social game, but it's important not to chase content that's just trending and do stuff you're actually interested in. And I think that's kind of what we founded the brand on.
Yeah, I think when you mention the content and just your personality being authentic, I think that's one thing gamers and people at esports and just kind of the fan base, the nature of Twitch, they read through BS so fast that if you are not interested, they know like right away. They watch day in, day out. They have an idea of whether you're into it, whether you're not, where I don't think you can really fake the passion of, a content creator or like a personality. The ones that do try and fake it, eventually they just kind of get, snuffed out, because I think gamers smell through the BS faster than just about any other group.
Definitely.
Yeah, my next question was going to be what are the components of crafting a successful brand as a creator, but I feel like all of the responses just now really eloquently hit on exactly that. I think authenticity and having it be a reflection of your personality is sort of really the pinnacle.
I would add really fast, Lauren, there's not like one set of rules. It depends on what type of content creator you are, right? I mean, like, I don't think a ton about my personal brand, right? But I do have a kind of a niche social following. And one thing that I realized at some point is people were giving me all sorts of rules about like what type of content you do and do not create. Like, don't write a novel on Twitter. That's not the point of the platform. But if you look at my most engaged tweets of all time, they're all novels. They're like threads that I didn't even bother counting how many tweets they were, because what's the point? Like, they're 30 tweets, right? And people will actually take the time and read it, because like my content is a little bit different, right? It's like if I'm writing a novel on like legal philosophy, then yeah, it needs to be a lot of tweets. But if you find it interesting, then you're going to go for it. So I think depending on what personality you are and what type of content you're creating, there is no one set of rules for what it looks like to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, everything we know about people, no one is monolithic. Everyone is incredibly dynamic and has so many facets to their personality. And I feel like the strongest brands that we see incorporate so much of just what makes people. So pivoting into personal finance, and just as we all know, personal finance and career are so inextricably intertwined. And I'd like to talk a little bit about your approaches to personal finance, because this applies to everyone incredibly differently. And it's something that's not talked about in college on the level at which I feel like a lot of us feel like we wished we had heard at that age. Matt, you were a COD pro before becoming on-camera talent.
Yeah.
Was there anything you noticed generally just about how pro players tackle the subject of personal finance?
We had no clue. I mean, that's kind of the real summary of it. I can tell a story of how to not monitor your personal finances. I won a ton of money. I think it was like in 2007 or 2006. So I decided to go buy a car with it. And then I figured out that I needed to pay taxes on that money. And I wasn't super thrilled after that. I think it's just even for the pro player base, and I think it's getting a little bit better now, but you're not really taught how to prepare for like the long term. You just kind of learn on the fly. Where I think like as esports is evolving, you're starting to see more things being put in place for players and people involved in the space to kind of have a better understanding of personal finance. I wish it would have started a little bit earlier for my sake, but I think it's going in the right direction though.
So for those of you who have worked in more traditional sort of corporate or full-time work environments, I think for a lot of people, they have a moment where they see their first paycheck from their full-time job hit their bank account, and you're sort of thinking about personal finance changes. Did that happen for you? If so, how?
Well, I co-founded a startup for 3 years. So we actually had the mentality that we were going to take the minimal amount of paycheck we needed, because we'd rather use as much of the runway as possible for the company. So this was basically basics, like living in Silicon Valley in a living room for 2 years with curtains and no doors, which is kind of the founder stereotype, except for the fact that it's often true. We used like a random room on Stanford campus as our office for like a year. Nobody really found out because they left it unlocked. It was great. But in terms of personal finance, we always had to make sure that we had enough runway that if like we needed to use something for the startup, we could sustain ourselves. So we'd always try to see like, hey, are we going to be okay for at least 8 months? This was like our short amount. I think people should have longer runway in case they get fired or something like that. And to make sure that you have you're spending, like, this is what I need for my basics to get by. Like, if the startup is going to fail, how much time would we need to look for a job? Probably, let's say, like, we'd like to be comfortable for 3 to 4 months. Are we going to have that? So once again, trying to think of what's the worst case situation possible and making sure you have that covered. At the time, like, we didn't really have enough money to invest or things like that or grow our wealth. That happened at a later stage, but we always made sure that we would be, self-sufficient for enough that whatever happens, we can tackle it.
And all I have to add is, well, as an 18-year-old who just moved out, all I can say is that I'm thankful I was saving my money as soon as I started making money, because for the first time I found out how much I have to pay in taxes, and I have to pay rent, and I have to pay bills, and I did not realize how much everything was going to be, not even one bit. And I'm really glad that I did save for this. I was not expecting to move out, but now it paid off to save up.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, oh, we're going to make so much money from a sponsorship. I'm like, let me show you.
They're like, here's the taxes.
I'm like, how much? This is actually how much you have left.
Yeah.
I thought that's where Lauren was going with the framing of the question, was like, you get your first check in your bank account. And it's like, now what? My first reaction was like, wait a second, I thought I made X dollars. And why is Y going into my bank account, right? And then you start to unpack why. I mean, look, there's an unfortunate reality of this, which is that our education system fundamentally fails American children. At least I cannot speak to other places around the world, but like, there's that great tweet that gets circulated every April where it's like, man, I'm sure glad we learned so much about parallelograms. It's really coming in handy this parallelogram season, right? Like, there's just so much that we teach people in high school, college, even graduate school that is not very practical for the real world. And there are so many things that we don't teach that would be incredibly practical and helpful, like personal finance. And the best advice so some people are just naturally gifted in this regard and do their own taxes and manage their own finances. Good on you. I'm not that person. The best advice I can give is that there's like infinity resources out there, right? Like, we're on a panel sponsored by SoFi. I have no doubt that if you go to the SoFi website, you're going to find a lot of materials that can give you everything from, personal finance 101 all the way through more complicated stuff. There's also a ton of service professionals out there who, if you are at a stage, right, about like growing wealth, right, and figuring out how to make whatever money you have work for you at a broader level, that you can lean into and get support from, right? And so pay attention to this, right? Go and get educated about this. The system is failing you, but the internet is not. And so you can go and rely on that.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think the thing that really helped me out personally was just, I didn't have a lot of shame about it, right? I had a lot of friends who, as I was graduating college and as I was starting to enter the workforce, and then subsequently even in my esports career, I'm very fortunate that my friends initially were very open about, hey, this is how much I'm getting paid. This is how much you're supposed to get paid. This is how much we're going to be spending on these things. These are the budgets that we have in mind for what an apartment should cost and how much you should be paying for it, how much a couch costs and all that, right? And getting rid of that stigma among friends and family members about talking about your finances, super helpful. Because it's really hard to negotiate. It's really hard to understand how much you're making or how low you're making or what you're going to make or how to spend your money unless you have friends and colleagues to talk to that about, and you can be very honest with them. And so certainly, I remember when I graduated from college, I was getting an apartment in San Francisco because I got a job as a product manager. And I was really excited. I did the math around getting an apartment, but no one told me that in San Francisco, you had to pay first month, last month, and a deposit at the same time. And so I get to San Francisco and I'm like, well, crap. I don't have money for furniture or for really anything. And I remember I'm very lucky in that I have friends who, like my friend Ben Morse and Merlin Dang, who are like, hey, I will lend you $1,000, right? So that you can have some food money until your paycheck hits your bank account in 4 weeks, right? And if it wasn't for that help, I would have been screwed for sure. And I think that type of information is super useful to get by talking to people and trying to get rid of the stigma that we all have about hey, this is how much I make. It's been really cool in esports in the past few years. And I think we've all seen where people are becoming more open about it. I hope other people are take that step so that there's more education on not only on the internet, but also within your personal lives.
Sebastian, you've hit on something incredibly powerful, which is money is considered an incredibly taboo subject. Mm-hmm. it is something that just has a ton of stigma, whether it's debt, whether it's talking about compensation. And, this is something that we all would be so much better served digging into these things, talking about these things with people that you trust, talking about them with professionals. It will make a huge difference in terms of just how you set yourself up and how you build healthy financial habits just in life. Yeah, I think that's very, very powerful point. For those on the subject of sort of talking about compensation and how we approach that subject, for those of you who have had experience in corporate environments where you are negotiating for compensation, do you have any advice on how to approach conversations like that? Or not even necessarily in a corporate environment, something like a startup, but just, how to approach what some people who have never really done it before might perceive as an awkward conversation?
Yeah. I'll start there just because I negotiate for a living. So the first step is to negotiate, right? And let's start with some data, right? There's a lot of data around pay inequality in the US, and there are a ton of reasons for pay inequality, right? Gender-based pay inequality, and one of them is that a woman is far less likely to negotiate their initial offer than a man. And there are a bunch of reasons why, and we don't have to unpack them, but it turns out that if you negotiate, you are far more likely to receive increased compensation. I can also dispel a really common myth. If I negotiate, if I'm happy with it and I negotiate, can't I lose it, right? Am I putting this at risk? And I can say as someone that negotiates literally dozens of deals on a daily basis, I have never, not once in my entire career, seen a deal blow up because someone countered. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot, now for the simple fact they countered, you could counter in an appropriate way, and that can blow up the deal, right? If someone offers you $10,000 a year and you counter for $1 million a year, they are very likely to come back to the table because they are going to assume you are too far apart, right? So you have to be reasonable in your counter. You have to be professional in your counter. You don't want to insult someone. You do not want to be overly aggressive. You want to put forward your counter proposal, and you want to explain in rational terms why you think you are deserving of X, or why you think Y is more fair than Z, right? And if you do that, I'm not guaranteeing they say yes. There are times when people really do make their best and final offer right from the get-go, but I promise you're not going to lose the offer because you countered. They will come back and say, hey, we really appreciate the instinct that you countered here to try to negotiate. Unfortunately, we have no flex. Here is why. So it's kind of a take it or leave it situation. And then you're in a position where you get to make a call one way or the other. But do not be so afraid of the conversation that you do not engage in the conversation, because you're doing yourself a huge disservice. The only other data point I would add is career growth and compensation is exponential. If you start at a certain baseline, you are likely to continue to grow on that baseline. And so if your entry job, they're offering you $35,000 a year and you negotiate and get $40,000 a year, that will net you hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of your career, because you've established a new baseline on which you get to grow. So I get it. It's uncomfortable. Not everyone is like me and is doing this on a daily basis. You got to try. This is one of those things where, you got to just put your best foot forward, rely on other people, and figure out a way to take that shot. You will regret it if you don't.
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead.
One of I think Bryce's best points was to just be rational with it. I think sometimes, especially in gaming, I think you see like the amount of money that is like whether it's like raised or thrown around, and people just kind of shoot really, really high. Where I think where you kind of your worth, what you bring to the table. And I think as long as you're fair and rational, I think like Bryce said, like you're always able to kind of work out something in terms of like a counter or some type of deal that works out for everybody's best interest.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of these guys have gone into some really interesting strategic thinking here, and certainly agree with all those things. From a tactical standpoint, I would say do your research. Information's key. Just having an idea what your ranges are will help you a ton. And the best way to find that out often is just ask your peers or ask people you know. And it's going to be a little awkward for sure. But you should be going to Bryce and being like, hey, Bryce, I'm an esports lawyer. Please help me. How much do you make? And Bryce, he might tell you, he might not. But if you have enough of those conversations, you'll have a good range of idea. When I've had the good fortune negotiating a few of my own contracts as well as against people, And my favorite tactic has been I've literally just called and grabbed beers with every single person in my position in the space. And I was like, hey, I will give you all my information. Here's how much I've made in my career. Here's how much I think I'm going to make in my career. Could you give me your information as well? And I remember I took all the information, I took like the 75th percentile of it. And I went to my bosses and I was like, hey, so this is what everyone else makes at my position. This is what I make currently. This is where I want to get to. Like, let's talk, right? And information, I feel, is so valuable for decision making. The more information you have, the better decision making it will be. And it's pretty one-on-one in that case.
One other tactic that I learned, and to be specific, this was when it comes to sponsorships or venture capital funding, is having one offer is going to help so much in negotiations. Because as soon as you have just one offer, you can use that to get offers from competitors, and sometimes they can even go into some kind of betting war. And obviously, if you're doing that in a more traditional job market, say it's your first job, whatever your highest salary offer is, you can use that information to whoever your employer is. And you can say something, I really want to work for this company, or I really want to go with this investor or this sponsorship, but a competing one has offered this much. Is this something you could match? So make sure to at least have more than one offer if you have that option.
Yeah, I think everything everyone has said has been incredibly insightful. Feels like key takeaways are: be your own advocate. No one else in your workplace is going to advocate on your behalf. It's up to you. Coming prepared, doing your research, having the information, knowing your worth, and if ever possible, having leverage, and really sort of using that to your advantage. All of those are incredibly important points for that process. So thank you. We're going to pivot and we are going to talk about chess.
Ooh.
Alexandra, Andrea, as you two know perhaps better than anyone in the world right now, there is a global conversation happening about your game. The Queen's Gambit has brought the game to the forefront, and interest in the game has surged. Sales of chess sets have grown 125% since the show came out, if anyone who is watching was unaware. And so with the spotlight on chess, and thus on both of you, I'd love to know, what would you like to do with this moment in time?
As a content creator, ever so often you get this kind of new virality, and this has been one of the biggest moments for chess. I mean, there's more interest now than in the last 10 years or so. And we're trying to basically do as much as we can with it, make videos related to the show, take as many interviews as possible. But what I actually find more interesting is, I think sometimes people think success happens overnight. But really, even if we just continue to do what we've been doing, which is grinding at content for, at least in my case, for years now, make sure that you make the most of the moment whenever you get some kind of popularity, but realize that 99% of the work and what it's going to lead to success is what you're doing day to day. So don't just think of it as this is the only moment, it's never going to come again. Make the most of it. It'll happen again. And between those two moments where maybe it feels like nothing is happening, just keep working so you're ready for that next spike. And Andrea, feel free to add, please.
Yeah, so building on virality of things, I mean, chess went viral a few months ago on Twitch, and then it tended to die down. We continued making content. And for this second wave of virality, I think the biggest goal is you want a long-term effect. On Twitch, sure, it brought some new streamers interested in the game, but it didn't leave a huge effect except for the category growing a little bit. And I think just bringing all these new people who are interested in chess, like people reaching out saying, I'm 25. I always thought it was too late, but I want to learn the game. I'm making a USCF chess membership, and people coming in the comment section, they're eager to learn. And as soon as you have that interest and you're able to teach them something, that they'll go a long way. They're going to be playing with their friends. Who knows? Maybe they'll be teaching their kids. And you just really want it to last and to spark an interest in other people that isn't just going to be while it's trending, but for them to play chess throughout their life.
Yeah, it's, I love what both of you have said, but I think it touches on something powerful, which is really 99% of the work happens when the cameras are off. And, I mean, not literally in this case because you stream a ton, but, it's oftentimes not about the big moments. It's about really sort of understanding what it takes in all of the other days of the year. Mm-hmm. So, Andrea, you're young, and you've proven yourself to be such a force through your accomplishments, both in streaming and in chess. Curious what's next for you?
Well, so far, I want to just continue to push myself to learn things intellectually and continue learning how to grow this business. I mean, every day I feel like I'm learning new things that are business related that I had no idea about. Also, having my sister as a mentor is a huge deal because she has experience in college. She had a startup. So I like to do a little bit of educating myself on the side about business as a whole, to do with podcasts, to do with books, because I think maybe next year I want to be a part-time student and study major in business while continuing to grow the channel. And then aside from this, every day we're learning how to make new interactive content. I try to branch out and learn how different platforms work. While we're working, we've been really successful on Twitch. The next thing I want to learn is how to grow on YouTube and using these new networks that we built, how to plan new shows and how to just build on what we created.
Yeah, there's just so much rich territory in this arena, and it feels like both of you, I think, bring such an interesting perspective to this conversation because your niche on Twitch is not a video game, but actually it's a game that human beings have played for over 1,000 years. I'm curious, are there any learnings from chess, whether literal or in your experience competing and training, that you feel like have proved to be really valuable in terms of overall life or career advice?
I always try to be careful with this question because I think people tend to put more emphasis on the connection between chess and real life than they should. And I think this can go with anything people are good at, right? Like, how did being good at math help you in logical decisions or something like that? That being said, I think it's another way that has helped me focus a lot in the past. And that was probably the most important for me. Because it's really hard right now to have a good attention span, right? Because you're always on your phone. There's always some kind of notification going on. And this is one of the few games for me that takes my focus completely. But I think that goes with anything you're super interested in when you're working and you don't realize time is passing because you're so passionate about whatever it is. So that's my answer.
Yeah, so not speaking about, the actual traits you need to be good at the game, like problem solving and concentration, but more in like real life experiences. I think growing up, we both took chess very seriously, and I had to juggle it with my school curriculum and with my chess tournament. So definitely learning time management is the most important, keeping myself on track. And right now, when we have so many things to do in a day, I'm good at being focused on my goals. And that's all I got for now.
Great. Thank you both so much. So, Seb.
What's up?
Within what?
What's up?
Within the Rockets, you played a very unique role in having sort of one foot in each world. So you got a foot in traditional sports and a foot in esports. Can you share any key learnings from working within a sports organization that were applicable to your career more broadly? So sort of a different take on my last question, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, so I would have to give a ton of credit to 3 people in particular. So Daryl Morey, who's now the president of basketball over at the 76ers, Tad Brown, who's the CEO at the Rockets, and Rafael Stone, who's now the new GM at the Rockets. The biggest thing was just learning from people who are better at this stuff than you are. Right. I thought I was pretty good at this esports thing. I thought I was pretty good at picking players. I thought I was pretty good process. And that first year I was with the Rockets in 2016, they were like, look, you might be good for what you do, but you're not good relative to how people in different spaces and bigger fish or in bigger ponds, bigger oceans are good. And so that exposure to me was awesome, right? We just learning and continuing to being a student, being humble was so much fun, especially when you find people who are really good and good people. And so if anything, the biggest application was just be open to the fact that you can learn so much from so many different people. I've learned so much from people both much older than me and much younger than me. There's this one guy, I won't say his name because he's not that public, where he was 24, graduated from Texas A&M, was working in the marketing department, the data department at the Rockets, and his wife was working at ExxonMobil, right? Very typical Houston story. And one of the things that he would talk about was just juggling the sort of the pain points of working in sports, which was that we work Christmas, we work Thanksgiving, we work weekends with his life overall, right? And so it was really a lot of fun to hear him talk about it, something I really hadn't thought about before because I was just going to events all the time and not even thinking about life balance in any sense of the word. To have like a 24-year-old kid being like, hey, so this is how I balance my life with my wife. And I'm like, man, I have so much to learn from you. And it's because they have so much resourcing on the traditional sports side to be like, hey, here are the things that we've done for the last 100 years. We started out scheduling matches, and now we have this thriving business. And just learning from that was a ton of fun.
I want to ask a follow-up question to everyone about work-life balance. And I think all of us obviously are struggling with this right now, given that we work from our homes and it seems like boundaries are much thinner than they've ever been. I think for those of you who stream on this panel, it would be great to hear sort of what work-life balance looks like to you. How do you preserve boundaries when oftentimes your personal life does feel so much like work? Any insight would be awesome to hear.
I'm going to be frank. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's been quite hard considering like I guess my main hobby outside of like doing shows and stuff, which I do here. I also play games, so I'm also here. You just kind of feel like you're stuck in this weird rut with how COVID is. I think one of the things that I've kind of leaned on is like I have a great group of people that I play games with who aren't really even associated with esports or the industry at large. That they're just people I met online that I kind of find cool when we play games with, and I think that's kept me very grounded because I think sometimes when you work in the industry and you kind of you make friends within the industry, the talk and always kind of seems to be centered around work, and you just kind of get spun up in this cycle where even when you're not working, you're just talking about work and you're just kind of in it 24 hours a day. So having that kind of group that I can just not have the light on, not have the camera on, no stream on, and just hang out and just BS about stuff definitely keeps everything more in balance.
I don't understand work-life balance. I'm the worst person to ask this question because before I was a startup and now it's a stream. So these are things you should be working on 7 days a week. I have had situations where I've burnt out and I needed to take time. And that was something that I didn't really like. What has helped me a lot is just loving what I do. But if there's situations where you have a bad day and you have no work-life balance, then basically how your streamer company is doing is how you're feeling. And that's really toxic and I need to work on it. I'm actually learning a lot from Andrea, who is much better at this kind of thing.
Yeah, I would definitely say that is the largest challenge. I mean, just a few months ago, like she said, she was burnt out, and for a month I carried the channel, and I learned from that because she pushed herself. Most streamers, I mean, the top streamer right now doesn't take a single day off, like almost year round, and he streams 12 hours a day talking about XQC. And I was always a person who needed a balance. Like I want some time in the day to work out, some time of the day to clear my mind. And especially when you're working on social media, I mean, even when you're not streaming and you're on your phone, then you're thinking about, okay, managing Twitter, managing Instagram, managing YouTube, you have all these people. So it's really hard to distance yourself from work. And luckily, I mean, I'm pretty new to this field and like just trying to help my sister, who's definitely a workaholic. We put in a lot of healthy practices where we limited the hours we were streaming. We tried to be more effective. So like cut our streaming hours and spent 1 extra hour making a YouTube video. And another big thing that helped us a lot is having a healthy environment, which, I mean, right now we just moved to Austin, Texas. Before we were in New York and then in Portland. And in Portland, we were both feeling kind of unmotivated. It wasn't a good space for us. You know, it has to do with the weather, it has to do with the social scene, and making sure that you're inspired by the environment and you can go outside and take a break and you won't think about streaming definitely helps my mental health.
Yeah, all incredibly good points. We are very sadly running out of time, so I will end on this question. Just keep it super short, one sentence. If you had to give your college self a piece of advice, whether it's about career or personal finance or personal life, what have you, I leave it to you. And we will start, Alexandra and Andrea, with you, since the circle has gone the other way every other time.
I would have bought more Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, I'm kidding.
That's good advice.
Advice that I would have given myself in college would probably be just to relax a little bit. I was always extremely stressed, and I'd be stressed even if I was doing my best. So if you know that you're doing your best, that's all you can do, and just be a little bit more patient and understanding of yourself.
I'm not sure if I can answer this question since I haven't been to college yet.
Sub-college for high school.
Oh, wait, say that again, so I didn't hear.
Feel free to substitute college for high school.
For high school. I'd say just be more open-minded about the future. I wanted to go to Stanford and I didn't get in. I was devastated. I was like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm going to go to school. And I didn't even end up going to school. So, don't think you only have one option after high school.
Alrighty, Seb, you're up.
Yeah, I would say treasure your time with your friends, treasure your time with the people you're around. You won't have many opportunities as you get older to spend as much time with them, just because of the stresses of work. People eventually get old and they'll get married and they'll have kids, and next thing you know, you're in an apartment by yourself, and you have to schedule 6 months in advance to see them again. So I would say, hey, make sure you're spending a lot of time with your friends, appreciate the time you're spending with them, and go from there.
I would say to just be a little bit easier on yourself. I think especially early on when I was in college, a lot of whether it's your friends or family have an idea of what you should do. And you're kind of told well, hey, you can go do this and you can go do that. And you can kind of get wrapped up in that rather quickly. But to just kind of let everything run its course, go to school, find out what you're interested, be open, and pursue what you're passionate about. I don't think let anybody else kind of tell you what you should or shouldn't do.
Yeah. I guess the one sentence advice I would give is just the stakes aren't that high. When you're in college, the stakes feel so high. You got to be the president of this club. You got to get a 4.0, whatever, these things are so important. If you don't get this internship, you won't have a job when you graduate, whatever. Just kind of none of it's true. I mean, don't fail, right? Don't get, don't drop, don't fail out, right? You should probably do some extracurricular, but do what's interesting to you. Don't do it because it's a resume line that's going to get you a job. The ways in which you wind up getting jobs are so different than, and the path you wind up on is so different than what you think it will be in college. That you can relax a little bit more, do what's going to make you happy, spend more time with friends, go out a little bit more, study a little bit less, whatever, right? This is not universal advice. This is advice to college me, right? Some people could probably afford to study a little bit more, take it a little bit more seriously, but in general, the stakes of college are actually just not that high for the rest of your life.
Wait, Lauren, what about you?
Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
Oh, some amalgamation of everything. I know that's a total cop-out because I went last, but just again, to your point, the stakes are not that high. You only get this opportunity once to be young and untethered in a lot of ways. So lean in. I am sad, genuinely, to end this conversation because it has been so interesting and so gratifying and so valuable. I want to thank all of you so very much for your time, and to SoFi for investing in collegiate gamers. If you are a college student watching this, thank you so much for tuning in. Go check out our SoFi Meta Melee tournament and giveaway at nerdstreetgamers.com/SoFi. There's one weekend left, and you can compete for the chance to win $10,000 toward the cost of school, whether that's paying down student loans or paying tuition. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and hopefully we can continue this IRL soon. Wishing everyone well. Please be safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for
Thanks,
having
everyone.
us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Hey, you. Yeah, you.
I opened a SoFi money account, and it was the first time that I realized I can be earning interest back on my money.
I just discovered SoFi and I'm an investor with a diversified portfolio. Who am I?
I refinanced my student loan with SoFi because of their low interest rates.
Thanks SoFi for helping us get our money right.